Hey everyone, welcome to the Fortress of Solitude podcast. I'm your host, Sergio Pereira, and today I'm flying solo, mostly because I'm one of the lucky people who's been able to watch Batman: The Long Halloween Part 1. Now, obviously, for some of you who might not know, this is one of the latest DC animated films, and it is obviously an adaptation of Jeph Loeb and Tim Sale's seminal series. But here's an interesting tidbit about it. This film was actually delayed for quite some time because Matt Reeves was considering adapting it for The Batman. Once he actually decided to go in a different direction, the filmmakers were able to get together and wrap things up on this project. So naturally, DC animated films has always got a good rap for putting out a lot of quality. However, some of the last Batman films have been received to mixed reception, I would say. And it's not because of the bad quality of it, I think. It's because there's been a certain standard. When you think of Mask of the Phantasm and Under the Red Hood, there have been some really sensational animated films that have been released. And a lot of the stuff just hasn't been able to meet that standard, which, you can kind of understand because, not everything is going to be a 10 out of 10 in life. We all know that. But now, I have to tell you guys something very, very important. The Long Halloween Part 1 is easily the best animated film since Under the Red Hood. And quite frankly, I think it's probably even better. Seriously, this is one fantastic Batman movie. I know a lot of people are going to be screaming for this to be adapted into a live action film. I really do not care if it ever happens or not because I'm just happy that we have received this. Now, a lot's been made about the animation style, which, follows in the same sort of vein as Superman: The Man of Tomorrow, one of the recently released DC films. But I truly believe this sort of approach actually shines and looks much sharper in the gritty noir of the story in Gotham City. It looks fantastic. When you're watching this, it just screams like the old animation style of the past, and it doesn't feel like, some of the weird direction that DC's gone in recently where you're not too sure if it's anime or if it's, a blend of previous styles. This looks distinct. It looks incredible. Naturally, we also have to discuss the voice cast. Now, I'm going to be honest here. When I heard Jensen Ackles had been cast as the voice of Bruce Wayne Batman, I was a little hesitant. Don't get me wrong. I think he's a pretty good actor. I've enjoyed him in Supernatural and even in Days of Our Lives, but let's not mention that. And he's pretty good, but I will always associate him with the voice of the Red Hood and Jason Todd. I mean, for so many years, everybody was screaming for him to be cast as the character in a live-action movie, and it never happened. So now to put him as Batman kind of feels, it felt a little bit odd, to be honest. But I must say, I did not recognize Jensen Ackles here at all. I actually thought it was somebody else for the most part. I was like, wasn't Jensen Ackles supposed to be the voice of Batman here? Because he did such a good job of disappearing into the character that you believe he is that character. Now, I'm not going to go and say that he's on the same level as Kevin Conroy, for example, but I do believe that he has convinced me that he's really, really good. And I want to see him obviously in part 2, which, he's going to be doing part 2, but I'd love to see him in more animated films because he definitely deserves to carry on with this role. He did a fantastic job, as did the rest of the cast, to be honest. I think it's got a sensational voice cast. I really enjoy it as well. Jack Quaid from The Boys, he also appears in this. And I must say, though, the one person who really surprised me and who really caught me off guard, and I had no doubt that it was going to be a really good performance, but how they encapsulated the character was Josh Duhamel as Harvey Dent. He was simply incredible. Like, I actually cannot believe how well he pulled off the part that I was actually thinking to myself, he would actually make a really fantastic live-action Harvey Dent as well. But the way he managed to, capture that sort of uncertainty and also the good side of Harvey was just something else. Like, he really was fantastic. Now, we obviously need to discuss a little bit about storyline here and, everyone, well, okay, not necessarily everyone, but I've kind of expected most people would have already read that Long Halloween or be familiar with the story. If you haven't, well, it's briefly, I'm just going to put it this way. It's a mystery story where there's somebody called the Holiday Killer, and he's basically, going after a lot of different people in Gotham and, killing them off. And Batman needs to solve the mystery of who it is. And naturally, he believes it's a lot of his rogues, like the likes of the Joker, even Calendar Man, because of the nature of where the murders are taking place. But, it's stretched out a bit. There's obviously, a bit of a whodunit, numerous suspects. You kind of expect it's one person at some point, then it's actually somebody else. And for the most part, the movie actually does follow the same plot as the source material. But naturally, there are a few little changes. I mean, you'll see some difference to the scenes that might have been done a certain way in the comics. But it actually keeps, the same core of the story, the essence of the story. It hasn't tried to change everything up. I'm really interested to see if part 2 kind of keeps the twist that we all know is coming, the people who've read it at least. But from what I can see, it's probably going to go in that direction. And the good thing is that even if you do know what the twist is of who the Holiday Killer is, the film does a really good job of keeping you invested in it. Not once do you say to yourself, well, I kind of know who it is, so I really don't care. It actually makes you want to carry on and watching it. So yeah, I mean, for me, I thought the storyline was really good, how they managed to, I want to say, just replicate it. They obviously understood the story, and it wasn't just like a beat for beat repetition of what we are used to reading, but they managed to be like, okay, this is a storyline, let's adapt it the way that we see fit in this animation style with these characters, let's do it. And I thought it just came out really, really well. Now, obviously, I mean, I think that because of the animation style tying also closely with Superman, the Man of Tomorrow, everyone is thinking that this is the start of the new DC animated universe, that this is going to be the style, which quite frankly, and also I think was the Justice Society movie that came out recently, it's all similar animation style. So it makes sense that they're obviously going in this direction. And I think it's a really good idea because it just looks fresh, it looks updated, and I know a lot of people would love to go back to the old days of Batman, the animated series, and obviously Superman animated series, Justice League, but this just looks a lot cleaner for the era now. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with the previous styles, but except for the last one which we discussed, it kind of had a bit of an identity crisis. But this just looks a lot cleaner. It looks fresh. There's something about it, and I really want to see the DC films move forward versus being stuck in the past. I think as fans, sometimes we have an over-reliance on nostalgia to keep going back to what we really did enjoy and be like, oh, do more of that. But at some point, we also do need to move forward. And it's projects like this, like The Man of Tomorrow and The Long Halloween, that are saying, okay, we can take stories that you love, stories that you are familiar with, and we can put a spin on it, and with new art and bring it to a new generation. Because, I mean, let's not forget, The Long Halloween is probably 25 years old, the story, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere around there. So it is a story that was written many, many years ago. And now it's being released to possibly a new generation of fans. Obviously, the old ones are going to be delighted too, but the new ones are going to be like, hey, this is pretty awesome. And yeah, I mean, if DC keeps delivering animated films like this, we are in for a massive, massive treat. Seriously, people, I cannot recommend this movie enough. If you haven't watched it, do yourself a favor and get down to a digital service or your streaming platform. Well, streaming platforms are not going to have it at the moment. Actually, though, it's digital on demand, if I'm not mistaken. And get yourself also the Blu-ray, DVD, if you can get that in South Africa, because at the moment I do know that we are having a problem getting this stuff in the country, and it's like ridiculous cost. So yeah, just make sure that you watch this movie. It's very, very important. And whilst I'm at it, I do need to give a massive shout out to Jerry Smith, a fantastic writer and film composer who actually was the person who hooked me up with a copy of the movie. So thank you so much, Jerry. I really am indebted to you because this has made my month. Honestly, The Long Halloween has made my month. So yeah, in closing, guys, just please, please, please check this out. You will not regret it. Until next time, peace.